Welcome back, YouTube, to another comprehensive card breakdown. Today we're looking at Charizard VSTAR. Like and subscribe this video if you guys enjoy Charizard cards. If you don't, well, that's a problem. But we're going to be doing another video style essay like we did yesterday with RCS VSTAR. Charizard VSTAR is another one of the new cards that's coming out in the Brilliant Stars expansion. It is very hyped. There's a lot of circulations. I've seen early lists here and there, but a lot of these lists and a lot of these people are missing some pretty crucial stuff. So stay tuned in the video to see where I've kind of gone through, looked at all the fire type cards in our existing format, some of the existing supporters, and kind of pieced together a skeleton and a little bit of what's good for you guys. Here's our comprehensive card breakdown of Charizard VSTAR. If you guys enjoy the content, as always, like, subscribe, and I will, do more. Just leave a comment below. We're going to hit all the other VSTARs as well, Whimsicott, Shaman, etc., Glaceon, Leafeon. But for now, today's Charizard. So, before we start, we got to look at what Charizard is. Charizard V, the new one, it comes with a double fire attack. And a colorless, Incinerate 90, discard all tools from your opponent's active Pokemon. Not really crazy, there's not that many tools that actually matter right now in the format. Giant Cape, Big Charm are the two things that come out to mind, but otherwise doesn't really do much. For 3 fire and a colorless, you do Heat Blast for 180. Nothing to write home about, that's a lot of energy, not crazy good. Now Charizard V-Star has 280 HP. Again, it is a 2-prizer like we've talked about, all the V-Stars being. 2 fires and a colorless gives us the attack Explosive Fire, 130 damage, plus 100 if you already have damage counters on it. But how are we going to get damage counters on it? We'll get there in a second. Now with the V-Star power, it's actually an attack. You get 1 crazy big attack per game. 3 fires and a colorless, 320. Discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. That's pretty nuts. You can pretty much V-shot any, or one-shot any V-Max Pokemon, especially with a Choice Helmet. And that can really go a long way in terms of swinging the tide of the game, especially when you're a 2-prize attacker. You can also take another V-Star for pretty much nothing. So let's jump into it. Here are some cards that make the deck kind of run. You can play Magma Basin. Well, I think you gotta play Magma Basin, actually. Magma Basin is a new stadium, also revealed in the Brilliant Stars expansion. Once during each player's turn, that player may attach a Fire Energy card from their discard pile to one of their benched Fire-type Pokemon. Yes, it is the bench, so keep that in mind when you are planning accordingly. If a player attaches an energy card to this Pokemon in that way, put 2 damage counters on the Pokemon. We just talked about how do we get damage counters on Charizard. This is our answer. Now, there's another really cool supporter coming out in the new set, Kindler. You can use this card only if you discard a Fire Energy from your hand. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, put 2 of them into your hand, and shuffle the other cards back into your deck. That's pretty good. Kindler gets us the Fire Energy into the discard. We can take a look at the top 7, which is a pretty deep dig, and we can grab any 2 cards. That seems pretty good. Now, if you didn't want to play the other Charizard V already, we've got a different Charizard V. For 1 extra retreat cost, you do have an attack that you can use a little more reliably in Fire Spin, doing 220 and discarding 2 energy from this Pokemon, because we're more than likely playing double turbo energy in this deck. If we are, you can kind of pivot the Charizard Vs around, and this guy could also make a little bit of a splash in your deck, being another 2-prize attacker that you can power up pretty quickly and kind of out of nowhere as well. Now, some other additional cards that I think are very, very good in this deck. Talonflame V. Now, this card is a card that I've not seen in many people's lists. I think Justin Basil is the only person I've seen have it so far. It's a very, very strong card with the attack Fast Flight. This card came out in Vivid Voltage, and a lot of people didn't really give it that much credit. I thought, well, this card's got a really cool first attack. It's got to be good somewhere down the line. Fast Flight says if you're going first, you can use this attack on your first turn. Discard your hand and draw 6 cards. That is very crucial for a deck that revolves around having energy in your discard pretty much all the time. And if you don't have energy in your discard, you're going to struggle. Talonflame V makes it so you basically can't brick in the early game. That's crazy good. Brightwing is another attack, 3 for 160, nothing to write home about, but it is pretty decent. Now, the key pivotal point to Talonflame V, it has free retreat, so it becomes the pivot you need for Magma Basin to activate for your bench Fire-type Pokemon. Another really cool card that's coming out is Entei V. Entei V has Fleet-Footed as its ability to draw a card while it's in the active spot. It does have 3 retreat, so it's not the greatest card to have in your deck, but for a Fire and a colorless, you do 20 times each bench Pokemon on both sides. So it's pretty strong to kind of clean up attacks. You can power it up in 1 turn with the Magma Basin plus attachment, and it is another 2-prizer that kind of fits the bill. You can also play this big boy Charizard VMAX, a trophy card for many a collector, and players were hoping this card would never have to see the light of day, but unfortunately it might make its way in as a one-of, because G-Max Wildfire with 3 fires and a double turbo does 300. Paired with a Choice Helmet, that's 330. Yes, the double turbo reduces some damage, I know, but still, that is enough damage to kind of make a big impact in a game, and that can really go a long way when you're looking at, closing out the game. And Charizard VMAX, coincidentally, also evolves from Charizard V, so you don't really eat up any other slots. You don't have to put any more evolution lines into your deck. 3 more cards for consideration. You've got your Moltres with the Inferno Wings. attack that comes from your bench, 20 plus 70 if you have any damage counters on it. We know that Magma Basin puts that damage counters on it, so you can use this Moltres as a cleanup for that 90 damage after you've already hit something for a lot of damage with your Charizard VSTAR, hit something in with your Entei V, something like that. It's just kind of a cleanup attack where you can play a one of in your decks. Just simply offset the prize trade if you're playing a 2-prize heavy list to kind of make that 7th prize card that your opponents have to take that they don't want to take. Lance's Charizard V is another really cool card that you can put in 3 for 200. Nothing to write home about also, but it is something you could consider playing in the deck. I don't believe Lance's Charizard V evolves into Charizard V-Star or V-Max, but I might be mistaken. But it is a cool card I thought about. And then Victini V is the final one to kind of have another card that just powers up your Pokemon with Spreading Flames on turn 1, turn 2. And then Energy Burst kind of comes out of nowhere to clean up a knockout, because sometimes you might be dealing with something that has a ton of energy on the active spot, and this Energy Burst could be the 2 energy attack you need to just swing into something and be a counter play. It's nothing that I can think of crazily right now because the format is still undefined, and we don't know what cards are necessarily good, what cards are necessarily bad, but this Victini V is something to put in the back of your mind when you're looking at this building list. Now, 3 more cards that I think could make its way into the deck. Incineroar V. Now, Incineroar V I thought was binder fodder, a card that basically deserved to be in the shredder, and every time I pulled it, I was like, this card sucks, why do I have to keep pulling it? But for 2 fires and a colorless, you do Grand Flame for 90. Not a lot of damage, but you can attach up to 2 fire energies from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, which is not bad. It's not bad at all, especially for a deck like this, where you're going to have to kind of have a way to get energies into play pretty quickly, and you're going to be playing out of your discard anyway. It's still kind of binder fodder, I'm not going to lie to you guys, but it is a card that now I have like a little bit of a question mark next to, where I'm thinking, maybe I can make this card work. Maybe this card could be the splash I need. Another really fun card is Houndoom V. For 2 fire and a colorless, Vengeful Flame. 100 plus 100 if your bench fire Pokemon have any damage counters on them. That's 200 for 3. Once again, we already put damage counters on our board using Magma Basin. Another very cool combo. And now, a card that I personally think is pretty broken in this deck, and I think is an auto-include in pretty much every list, or most lists, is Ninetales V with the Ninetales Shapeshifter. You get the fire energy with the Magma Basin, you get the double turbo energy, and all of a sudden you're copying one of your opponent's attacks and using it as this attack. That's pretty good when your opponent's got pretty good attacks. A lot of Pokemon that are going to be in the active spot usually are going to have a pretty good attack to copy for you. You can copy their Whimsicott V, you can copy, I don't know, probably not Shadow Air, that doesn't seem great, but like a Suicune, an Entei, a Raikou, a Jolteon even. Like, you can copy so many different attacks, and you don't even need the energy cost, so you can just pick one of their bigger, beefier attacks that they might not be using. And then there's Flamethrower, obviously, if you got it a little bit deeper, but that doesn't do too much. So here's the first initial skeleton list I kind of devised. I didn't really know the direction I wanted to take with it, but I said, hey, if you're playing Charizard V, you're probably playing at least 4 Charizard Vs. It is the main bulk, your main attacker, your kind of splashable big boy, and then you're probably playing at least 2 V-Stars, and I think the V-Max is an auto-include, just to have that one big late game attack. So you get all those cards in there. You gotta have Crobat, because I think that's pretty much an auto-include now that Ultra Ball is in the format, and Luminion, because I think, again, you don't want to brick, and these cards make it so you don't ever brick. And then with 4 copies of Boss, 4 copies of Research, I think that's got to be your strategy, because you're a very aggressive deck. You got to start taking prizes here and there. The deck isn't very flashy, don't get me wrong. Explosive Fire gives you that vanilla 230, and that's pretty much your game plan. You're going to be trying to take out threats, you're going to be trying to take out knockouts, and 4 copies of Boss's Orders are going to let you hunt down those V Pokemon as quickly as possible to kind of just get your 2-2-2 prize game if you can. And then with 4 copies of Research, you got to get cards into the discard, so it's a very auto-include. I put 1 copy of Marnie in just because I feel like not having Shuffle Draw is a little bit suspect, as the kids would say. But I feel like Marnie doesn't really need to be here, but I just put 1 in. 4 Quick, 4 Ultra. No need for Evo Inces, no need for any of that stuff. We can just find our stuff with Ultra Balls. 2 Air Balloons because VMAX and the V-Star and everything has a pretty thick retreat cost here. And then we've got the 3 Magma Basins at the very minimum. Now I have 4 double turbos in here in the quote-unquote skeleton list, but you can cut it down as you would like. I just think having the ability to use Charizard VMAX is really, really invaluable. And the 10 fire energies I think is pretty staple. I think you need a minimum of 10 fire energies. But that puts us at about 45 cards. So where do we go from here if 45 cards are already eaten up? We only have 15 card slots. Now I know what you're thinking. That's not that many card slots. But that's a fourth of the deck. That actually is a lot of card slots. Here's one of my first lists that I wanted to try. I didn't remember which order I did them in, so this is the first list I wanted to try. It's the 2 Prize Battle Bonanza. I don't really know if that's a real name, but we're going to call it that. We're going to call it the Charizard Firebox 2 Prize Battle Bonanza. We're going to have Talonflame V. We're going to have 3 copies of it, because Fast Flight is absolutely insane. Having it in your active spot, you're probably only ever going to need 1 in a game, but having a Talonflame V is very, 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 very strong. So we want to be able to start it. We want to be able to have that pivot, because if we don't have that pivot, we're going to be relying on our air balloons, and that's not great for the entire game. We're going to have the 4-2-1 line of Charizard VMAX, or V-Star, whatever we've already had. The 3 Talonflame Vs to get the fast flight insured. 2 Entei's, because I think Entei is very, very good. And I think having this 2-prize battle deck kind of gives us that option to have this Entei come in and clean up whatever Charizard damage Charizard has done, yada yada, etc., etc. And then we have 1 copy of the Ninetales V with the Ninetales Shapeshifter, another option, another card that has there. The Moltres with the Inferno Wings, kind of giving us that 7th prize card trade that we talked about earlier. The VMAX also does a similar thing where it gives us that 7th prize card trade that they don't really want to take out. So both those cards kind of fulfill that role of breaking from our 2-2-2 pattern. 1 Lumineon V and 1 Crobat like we talked about. We cut down a boss's orders because I don't think we need the entirety of 4. We're playing 2 copies of Raihan because some of these decks cards do need 2 fires to attack as opposed to 1. So we get the Magma Basin, the attachment, the Raihan. All of a sudden we're cooking, we're rolling, we're doing damage. And we're just getting something set up immediately with cards like Lumineon. We should be able to find these Raihans pretty much whenever we want them to. We play 2 copies of Kindler as well for the early game, especially just to get the fire energies into the discard, as well as digging a little bit deeper. Kindler plus Talonflame is a lot of dig, especially on turn 2 if you go first as Talonflame, because you get the fast flight on turn 1. Turn 2 you get the Kindler, and you're pretty much halfway through your deck at the very least. You're seeing about half your deck at this point. A research paired with it later, maybe here and there. A Crobat, a Lumineon, you know, whatever. Like, we're digging. We're getting where we need to be. 1 copy of Adventurer's Discovery, because I feel like this card gets very, very good in a format where you have Lumineon. It acts as a pseudo Bridget, but it also acts as a turn 2, not pseudo Bridget, but like get your evolutions as well. It counts for the V-Stars, it counts for your VMAX, and everything in this deck is a V besides Moltres. So Adventurer's Discovery pretty much surges for the entirety of the deck. Again, the 1 copy of Marnie, I don't know if it's necessarily needed, but having a Shuffle Draw card feels really, really good. 4 Quick, 4 Ultra, I think that's all the search we need with the Adventurer's Discovery. 2 Balloon, 2 Cherry's Helmet, and a very fun card that you guys might have forgotten, EXP Share. Now, in a Firebox style deck like this, if Tool Jammer isn't popular, Tool Scrapper isn't popular, the 2 copies of EXP Share, plus the Raihan, plus the Magma Basin, we're going to have energies always on the board. Our opponents are going to have to hope we whiff an attack here or there. We're going to be aggressive from the turn 1 minute. We're going to be getting damage onto the board, and we are never going to be missing an attacker. And that is going to be the signature style of this deck. I think that's how you have to play it. Your damage output isn't crazy amazing, but we're going to be able to 2-shot anything in the format with everything that we have available to us. And with EXP Share, Raihan, and Magma Basin, like I talked about, we've got, you know, all the tools to do so. For Magma Basin, we upped the stadium count here because we're playing more of a toolbox style deck, and I don't want to get stuck by path or anything like that. 10 fire energies, similarly what we had before, and the 3 double turbo energies. We don't really need the 4 double turbo energies because the only thing that's really utilizing it in this list is the Ninetales as well as the 1 Charizard VMAX. So besides those 2, we don't really need the double turbo energies. So you could even go down to 2 double turbo and go to 11 fire, but at that point you have to dig a little bit deeper to find that double turbo for your Ninetales. But given all the tools we have, you can Raihan and pretty much get it on the turn you need. You can Raihan and get energies onto something else. Like, the whole list is revolving around just getting energy onto your board and sticking it there. And I'm really, really liking this list. Obviously, I haven't played any games with it, and I don't really know how it's going to function, but this is my early first take on Charizard. Now, the second version is something similar to more of what I've seen a lot of people be doing with the RCS V-Star. We did RCS V-Star yesterday, so we know how easy it is to slot into any color, and RCS V-Star slots very easily into this deck. And now we keep the kind of core of the list that we had earlier, but we play the RCS V-Star engine, play the Talonflame as well. I think we still need the 2 Talonflames. The pivot is insane. The fast flight is absolutely broken. And then we have 1 Entei, 1 Ninetales to kind of give ourselves some versatility. These 2 cards can be kind of splashed around, changed as you want to do them. We have 3 copies of Adventurer's Discovery now because we have more V-Stars to search out. We have more V-Pokemon to search out. And the deck is going to be a little bit more setup-oriented as opposed to just kind of bum-rushing the board and doing as much as you can. The copy of Raihans goes down a little bit to 1, and we still keep the Marnie. And the only big other change is the 4 Magma Basin count becomes 3, and we go back up to 4 Double Turbo Energy because of the RCS V-Star. Now, RCS V-Star kind of is the center point of this deck, more or less. 1 RCS V-Star Infinity Nova later, our board is set up and we're good to go. But I don't really want to rely on that, and that's why I really prefer this list more. But you guys let me know in the comments which one of these 2 lists you prefer. The Battle Bonanza deck, the 2 prize Battle Bonanza, or the Arceus and Friends list. But that is my original OG first look at Charizard V-Star. I took a little bit of time to do some research last night. Kind of went through every fire type card in the format, every supporter card in the format, kind of gave my honest impressions on what I think the deck is going to look like. Let me know what you guys think is going to come of this. I hope that this deck is okay. It's probably going to be tier 2 at best, but we're going to look at the other 4 V-Stars coming up later, but I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the next video of our comprehensive card breakdown. Thank you guys so much.